have announced a deal to send American weapons to Ukraine, which will be paid for by Europe. Since the announcement, it's become clear President Donald Trump presented a framework and not a fleshed-out plan. It's prompted questions surrounding the details of the deal, including how much it will cost the countries involved. Deutsche Welle correspondent Thomas Sparrow joins us now from Berlin. Hi there, Thomas. How was Trump's plan received in Europe?
There have been mixed reactions here in Europe. On the one hand, there are several European governments, including the German government, that have supported the move, essentially saying that this means that Europe and the United States once again can work together when it comes to supporting Ukraine, saying that it essentially means that both Europe and the United States are on the same page, and essentially also saying that this can help move beyond the previous ambivalence that many considered the US presidents to be showing. So that's one side of the debate, but there has also been criticism by European governments, also within the European Union institutions, who say that essentially that support should not only mean sending US weapons to Ukraine, but also financial support. In other words, sharing the burden between Europe and the United States. There has also been considerable criticism from governments, including the French government, who have stressed that it would be important for Europe not only to buy US weapons and US weapons systems, but also to invest further in Europe's defense capabilities. So as you can see, there is definitely a big discussion here on what this essentially means. But in general, you can say that it is seen as a step forward when it comes to Europe and the United States working together towards supporting Ukraine.
This comes as European countries, including France and Germany, are increasing their defence spending. Can you tell us more about those plans?
The French President Emmanuel Macron recently announced a big increase in defense spending for his country. And in the case of Germany, that is also something that has been developed in the last few months. In particular, in the case of Germany, it's important to stress that Germany's defense spending will be exempted from debt limits here in the country, from the so-called debt brake. And this is a massive change for Germany, for a country that was not only reluctant in the past to increase its defense spending, but that also has been historically reluctant to public debt. So as you can see, a big move here from Germany, a big move also from other European countries. But it's important to stress that not all countries see this in the same way here in Europe. Most countries did commit to increasing defense, specifically when it comes to that 5% NATO target. But some countries, for example, Spain, have been more critical of that move. So within the European Union, there are different views on how this should be approached, what this essentially means, also what this essentially means going forward in the next few years. But in general, most European countries have indeed considered the possibility and are also moving ahead with plans to increase their defense spending.
And are European citizens on board with this increased defence spending?
This is actually very interesting because it differs not only in different European regions, but within European countries specifically. So it does seem that many European citizens understand the need for European Union institutions, but also for European countries to increase defense spending, to be better prepared for international threats. But there are definitely countries, and there is certainly part of the population that see this with concern and that see this critically, not only because of what it means when it comes to spending. For example, there are those who say that money should be actually spent not necessarily on weapons and weapon systems, but more on infrastructure, education, health system, and so on, but also what it means in terms of Europe's capabilities. Again, the issue of France, and many in France that think that it should be spent more on European defense systems. So there is a general understanding that Europe and European Union institutions need to move forward when it comes to this common defense, yet at the same time, there is criticism and concern. Here in Germany, 50% said, according to a recent survey, that they supported that 5% NATO target, while at the same time, a third of German citizens said it went too far. This shows again that there is a big debate within European societies about what this essentially means for the future.
Thomas Sparrow in Berlin there for us. Thanks very much. Well, the US president is getting on